I got the package, didn't I? If you don't watch, well, none
missing
of us
it.
currently watch.
We're
new
missing
episodes
it.
of Bad
True.
Batch because it's off the air. But that was Wrecker from Bad Batch. It also just sounded like me just shouting.
Yeah.
But that's
Well,
pretty
perfect.
much Wrecker.
Perfect
It
for
is.
6:30
It
a.m.
is. It is. It wakes everybody up.
Oh,
Gets
I
us
feel like I'm
going.
a Wrecker. That's John C. Reilly or Kermit the Frog. I'm not sure what that
Wreck around.
delivery was there.
I know I'm going to wreck it.
Welcome
I
back to
feel
the
like
Star
I'm going
Wars
to wreck
Guys
it.
Podcast.
We are excited to dive into things. It's been a couple weeks. As always, we are your host, Mike.
Hello there.
Myself, Nate. Hello there. And you know him well, Uncle.
Hello there.
We were just talking Bad Batch, and
We were.
Had
we're
nothing to do with this upcoming
nothing to
podcast.
do with
We
this
just miss
upcoming
it.
podcast, but we do. We miss it. We're
Yeah.
just talking Bad Batch.
And we wrote a song about it. You want to do it? No, we didn't.
Well, I was ready to
to
just
That'd
jump
been
in.
awesome.
entire thing.
The Bad
We're about
Batch.
to do this song. It's 40 minutes long.
It's 40 minutes
This
long.
whole podcast.
The whole podcast.
Put together a montage of unrelated songs to the podcast.
Bad Batch.
38 minutes.
Oh man, we're excited to be back.
We are.
It's been a few weeks since we've been all together, ready. Like
Yeah.
we're amped up for a podcast.
Yep.
We were texting.
Yeah.
We were making sure we're all able to make it, and we're all excited to just get
Yep.
back after talking some Star Wars. We got
Yeah.
a few different topics to talk about today. Some stuff in the
True.
news.
Some good, some bad.
some good, some bad, some
Ugly.
always
between.
a little random.
Probably in between.
Some in between. Yeah, I'm excited. We have some stuff to talk.
Yeah, talk a little bit of Obi-Wan. We'll talk a little bit of Rey movie, current state of Star Wars, the truth, honest truth, and what we think, I
Nothing
guess.
but the
Yeah.
truth. You can't handle it. Okay, sorry. That's it's a little
In
early.
places you don't talk about.
But yeah,
I like that
we're gonna dive into it. So, what want to start with Obi-Wan? I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So in the news,
Mike's our news guy.
Why do we,
If we
it's
just had
always-
a panel edit to
like
him
an-
every time we.
It's like a 1990s.
Breaking news.
In the news today.
on the HoloNet. I don't know. So I was trying to do something Star Wars related. But
Meanwhile, on
meanwhile, in the halls of
news.
justice. Yeah. So what's been going around? Little Star Wars news stuff. Ewan McGregor, I believe, was on stage at L.A. Comic-Con, not San Diego Comic-Con. L.A. Comic-Con. He was there. L.A. Comic-Con, for those, I've never been to L.A. Comic-Con, but from what I understand, this is one of the Comic-Cons where a lot of actors and creators and stuff, they usually show up to make an appearance, answer some questions, but they're there for like the autograph signing.
Yeah.
Like it's a fun interact type of a thing. And Ewan McGregor was one of the people there, and he was, of course, asked some Star Wars questions. And the question, I'm
Rightfully
paraphrasing
so,
because I don't
rightfully
have
so.
the exact quote in front of me, but essentially one of the questions he was asked is there anything out there, or what are some things out there that you have not gotten yet to explore with the character of Obi-Wan, or something you would like to still do with the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi if you were to come back and do some more? Are there, different things that you're like, oh, if I came back, I would like to do this or like to do that? It was that sort of an open-ended someone asking about the potential of more Obi-Wan. And Ewan McGregor said first, I think he said like, oh, I'd always it's funny because Ewan, like he talks, he knows how to like command the stage and like command the audience, and like he's very comfortable in these things. So like he starts by just kind of like, it feels like almost giving the audience a little bit of what they want, but then gets into a really interesting answer that was pretty revealing. But at first, so his first answer is like, he's like, I really like I'd love to wear the Clone Wars armor, and he was like talking about that, and then also everyone goes, "Wow!" And he's like, I just always thought that looked like cool, and then when you think about it, you're like, oh, he's not saying that they're going to do that, but he's like, that would be cool. Like, he's like, I like the look of the Clone Wars armor. I think it'd be fun to do that. And he even said like, then me and Hayden that would get me and Hayden back together again. Yeah. But then you kind of see he's kind of like playful, just talking. And he also said, or an Obi-Wan season 2, and then people were like, and he's like, no, and then so there was like a little bit of a follow up, and he was like, no, I mean those again, I would love to play Obi-Wan again, and so it started to kind of feel like he was almost like walking it back a little bit of like, I'm not saying that's happening, but I would love to play Obi-Wan again. But then the interesting thing is, he said, I mean, I would love to play it again. And it's definitely something that's, something that we're hopeful, or I should say exploring.
Mm.
And then people were like, whoa, the fact that he changed his wording there. Hopeful it seems like there's not much to that other than I hope that we do it
Exploring
again.
means
Exploring
it's
is
actually a
like,
possibility.
that's actually more likely than hopeful. And so a lot of people are pointing out the fact that he corrected, or he switched his word choice to actually create a little bit more excitement, or a little bit more.
And then everyone went, yeah.
Yeah, so then he was like, I would say we're exploring like what those possibilities could look like, because then he even talked about like there's still a lot of time between the end of the Kenobi series and when we see Alec Guinness, and there's a big time period in there, and obviously he had talked about the Clone Wars armor stuff, but even so, real quick, just wanted to open this up. Had you guys heard that quote about exploring, and also just would you, two parts here, would that get you excited? Obviously, I think we all really like Ewan McGregor, and we love him as Obi-Wan. But is there a specific time period? Would you want it to be something where he's like de-aged and they're doing this kind of Clone Wars thing? Or would you want it to be something there's just a big gap still between A New Hope and his series, where he could fill in whether it's something with Qui-Gon or just not Darth Vader related, because it feels like that kind of is closed, like they've done enough of that maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi thoughts. What do we got? Or just thoughts on what Ewan McGregor is saying and what it makes you think.
I had not seen
the
that.
video is out there, by the way, so it's not even just a written article. It's a video I watched.
Run
of
that,
him
Nate.
saying it.
Put that up there.
Yeah, let's see
Do
it.
Edit that later.
Oh.
That's what it is.
I have not seen that. So that's cool to hear. I think I'm good no matter what it is.
Whoa, he's good. This guy's good no matter what it is.
Anything.
I think
a little cocky.
if it's
no matter baseball, basketball, football, I'm pretty good no matter what it is.
I think if it's Clone Wars or something, then that would be cool. I think practically that's going to be more difficult to do a full show or season of a Clone Wars thing with de-aging.
For an entire series, that would probably be tough.
So I could see it being more so a flashback thing. Similar to what they did for Hayden Christensen and Ahsoka.
So you mean have him appear in a different show?
Or do you
mean
or have him have his own
Kenobi,
show, but it would be
Kenobi in between
maybe
Qui-Gon area,
Qui-Gon
flashback
area
to some young.
Yeah, but then there's flashbacks to Qui-Gon training him, and we see flashbacks of that. Maybe it's even flashbacks to him being trained as a kid, not even Ewan, it's a younger kid being trained, and it's Qui-Gon training.
And then you flashback.
Flashbacks of that, or there's flashbacks to his Clone Wars days and stuff. But the main part is his. I can't even say current because he's been all there. But his period there in between, after the Kenobi series, not related to Darth Vader, but maybe other things that there's other evils and inquisitors or things out there that he's still combating, or going, or even it's related to the path. It could be related to that and his involvement and getting back out there to help.
Now I just think they just need a whole de-aging episode, a flashback episode.
Do it once.
Flashbacks.
Episode.
It's young Kenobi getting
never
trained
seen
by
young
Qui-Gon,
Kenobi.
and then we get young Qui-Gon. You flashback further, young Qui-Gon getting trained by young Dooku.
Yeah.
We get Christopher Lee at 20.
Oh man.
Nobody recognizes
Nobody
him.
who is that
We've
guy?
only ever seen
We've only
Christopher
seen him at 90.
at 90.
As far as pop culture goes,
Right,
obviously
right.
he's been a very famous and was a successful actor for many years before.
We watched.
We know Lord of the Rings and Star Wars.
We watched the horror of Dracula. That
Oh,
with
yeah, there you
Hannah.
go.
She was like, "Look how young." I mean, he's not 20, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But young for him is mid 70s.
He was 40.
Still,
Yeah.
whoa,
Because we've always
voice
done
is
so.
exactly the
ever
same.
seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Uncle
I
Fox.
hadn't seen the quote. I had seen that he had said something. Could it be that they're able to address one part of Obi-Wan's life that we've never seen? It's kind of a mystery, and that is when he says, "Luke, go to Dagobah, learn from the Jedi Master who instructed me, Yoda."
Yes.
Why does he sound like a Vader? Who instructed me?
Well, because
But-
because we never saw
Wouldn't
him
that be
really
interesting if
get trained by Yoda.
they're actually able to put that in somewhere, and we see Obi-Wan training
I
with
feel like it
Yoda?
would
That
make
would be
sense
cool.
after if they've been.
They've been kind of.
Do you really think Obi-Wan and Yoda never saw each other?
Had to,
since,
right?
Yeah, I would assume that.
We've always thought, well,
He made
they
a
might
trip
have
to
met the
Dagobah.
instruction that he had along the way. But what
Yeah,
if there
'cause
was
he's like
a time?
Jedi Master Yoda, but that's giving Yoda a lot of credit, nothing to Qui-Gon.
No, right.
Yeah,
Go to the.
So what if there was a time when
Yeah.
he actually did go
and help him
that would
to
be cool?
Dagobah
and trained him. In
because they
different
got separated, and then he would update him on what
Yeah, you
happened
would
with
think
the
that they
child
would.
and Luke
Yeah.
and
Or
all the
even
time
just,
with Leia, and then he goes to
Right.
Dagobah to tell Yoda,
things. Right.
"Hey, it's happening there," and then he spends time learning,
Listen,
getting
at the
trained,
very
and
least-
has missions, and
Yeah.
At the very least, they are the two, and obviously we know as more recent Star Wars has unfolded, there's some other Order 66 survivors. But at the time of Revenge of the Sith, they are the two remaining Jedi
That know what's going on at least.
that know what's going on, that are active Jedi users. They're protecting Luke.
who
and
are
Leia.
aware of Luke and Leia.
You would think
yeah.
at some point, even again, they're however many 19 years or whatever, where they're separated from each other. You would think at maybe year 8. And Obi-Wan's sitting there and he's just watching, and Luke's still like 8 years old, and he's like waiting if it's time. Maybe I'll consult Master Yoda on that. Like at one point,
To
you would
see
think
if-
they'd actually get together and just be like, "So what's our plan again?" Just to.
Yeah. Are we
uh,
still doing this thing?
Which, by the way, side
are we? Yeah,
side note, it is funny that they train. That they're worried about training Anakin that he was too old.
Yeah.
At 9, but then they wait till Luke's 19.
you gotta wait till he's of age.
So
Wait,
it's funny,
what?
like Anakin was too old, so we'll give Luke another additional 10 years instead of
decade.
intervening at like 6 and being like, all right, like because it's funny, even the Kenobi show, they're like, you're waiting to see if he's showing. We're like, yeah,
What?
but also like we do know he's the son of Vader. Like we don't
Right.
have to we don't have
Yeah.
to sit back and be like, I wonder if
Exactly.
there's
I felt like
anything
they
about
made
this
it.
guy.
I felt like they tried to make it more of.
I mean, they obviously
Uncle
they made it.
Owen's decision
For
was like
sure.
you're not messing. Like you're
No,
not
for
getting
sure, for sure.
involved.
I am.
You guys have
tongue-in-cheek.
caused enough destruction.
Yeah, I'm playfully just joking
But
about
you're
the
right,
fact
yeah.
that it's funny that Luke is their only hope. But the thing that one of the things that they thought went wrong with Anakin is just that they got to him too late.
Yeah,
And now it's
Yeah.
like Luke's like, not only is he's their only hope, but also you could imagine like when the galaxy is just going to absolute dumpster fire under the Empire.
mm-hmm.
At like age 8, Obi-Wan's got to be like itching to be like,
Just
"I
take him."
think we need help here.
I
I'm
know.
waiting to go do it." Which
Yeah.
obviously watched the show and he was interested in doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But then having the patience to be like, "No, we're gonna have another decade of tyranny
Yeah.
first before the time is right." Where obviously,
Yeah.
And there is a
Yeah.
time when when you don't have that many
It's
options,
tough.
you do get more desperate.
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
we know you are the only.
Yeah.
Now we know there were a lot of other hopes out there potentially, but
but at the time, yeah.
yeah, you didn't.
You
There
don't
were
want to,
a lot of
and
hopes.
I get
A lot of
also him not
hopes.
wanting to mess it up too. Like
Right.
there's a reluctance
Yeah.
there with what happened.
but
Or just
but then
even
realizing
like
we have
I
no
don't wanna get
choice.
this,
Yeah.
in it- this also this kid
Mm-hmm.
involved in something that's so huge. It's like
Yeah.
he's also living a life that I can be like, I know what
Yeah.
this leads to.
Yep.
If I
Yeah.
do this, not only am I changing this kid's life, I know what he's gonna have to face.
Right.
If I don't, I can just let him live his life. It's like also somewhat of that too.
So we're all
Can I-
excited
little-
for some more.
Oh,
Kenobi.
huge. Little side
Hopefully
note.
we'd get some.
Hugely excited. One of the things I like about Star Wars Explained, I think, is that he leaves room for, I would call it IAM. It's a movie.
Yeah,
He leaves room
Yeah.
for that,
yeah,
and I think that's
Totally.
fair. Some things
Yes.
like, it's a movie,
yeah.
so it's not,
Yeah.
And also,
things don't all
Yes,
perfectly.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was joking
Perfectly
because
matched.
obviously they
So I
were
like
written
that.
at different times.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it was
Right.
obviously Luke
Yeah.
was written first.
We
Like, that's the
acknowledge that
reason
all
why.
the time.
So
Yeah.
whenever people are like,
The
"Oh, this
practicality
canon
of-
doesn't line up with this or this," like,
You're right.
yes, that's right. Also, because Lucas thought he was making one movie,
Right.
And then it was a success, and he said, "Well, great, I actually had some other ideas. I was just gonna go
Yeah.
with this."
Yeah.
And then he makes the second movie. Oh, that was even bigger. Guess what? The love interest.
We're changing
actually
that.
their brother sister.
There, yeah.
Like,
Right.
Again, we've talked about it a ton. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
if that were to happen today, people would lose their minds. 'Cause
Which,
they're like,
yeah,
what in
why?
the world? That's such a
Yeah.
huge So you always have to take into
Yeah.
account. There's the story stuff, and then there's the real world elements of when these stories were created, who created them, what was going on at the time, and then also just the order in which they were created. Obviously, influences. You can't make everything unless you wrote the very first movie knowing the exact ending, and you have this entire master plan already pre-woven before you even roll camera on the first one. You're gonna have stuff. I mean, again, there's a reason.
So yeah,
Marvel movies, and I would say a lot of people give Kevin Feige a ton of credit, deservedly so, of having this like master plan. They switch stuff all the time.
yeah,
Oh,
Wanda randomly loses her accent because they just thought that it was kind of like annoying.
that's
Like,
right.
Yeah, they're like, wait, we have a bigger role for this character. We can't have her do it.
Yeah, we're
now."
like, we
there's
would
a-
actually just like Elizabeth Olsen just to sound like
There was a
herself.
little
They
bit of
stopped. Like, so
there was a
it's-
little bit of pre-information in 50 years of comics.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
They had all that, and
Kinda
then
helps.
still they changed stuff.
Back
Yeah.
still
I mean, we
changed stuff.
still within the Iron Man movies,
Which
we
means-
changed Rhodey changes actors. Like
Which
we
means-
like
yeah,
we
they're
switched the
changing
Hulk a
things
bunch of
from
times.
what
Like,
was
there's a
already
number of
there.
things that changed.
That's
Yeah.
right.
True.
So it is what it is. But I'm excited. Just even the potential
Man,
of
that
that
would be great.
Last part of that, would we want that to be? Because I am still under the last time we casted, I still do strongly believe that I don't think we're going to be getting very many, at least for the near future. Again, this is not something that's announced or anything. It's just you and talking.
Kathy's like,
Yeah, because
Ewan, are you serious? Why did you do that? to
Do
me?
we think that if this were to happen,
Gonna get 1,000
this would be
emails
more
today?
likely to be a Kenobi movie
Email.
now this time around than a show? Because I actually
yeah.
do think that they're going to lean more towards more movies, which they've said.
Yeah.
But also, I think Kenobi is one that they
So
might even
funny.
get a second chance.
The
of
movie
kind
is
of
the
like,
least risky thing now. What?
I know.
How
I
did that
think-
happen?
Well, we'll just throw a couple $100 million at
I
it.
think-
at
Better
least
than
we
a
don't have
TV
I
to.
think so because especially with the
Because a lot of people wanted, and again,
Put it
Kenobi
this
was
way, even
initially
whether
supposed
they
to be
do
a
it-
movie,
whether
and then
they do a
switched
movie-
it in production over the years.
whether they do a movie or a show, they're going to. I feel like they're gonna because one of the biggest complaints of the show was that it seemed at times like the budget was lower.
Yeah.
And people were expecting that to be the highest quality and highest budget because it's Darth
Ewan.
Vader and Obi-Wan.
Mhm.
Which how could it have not been? But anyway, if they did do a show or they go the movie route, I think they're gonna try to make up for that
Mhm.
essentially. Of like, okay, we're gonna make sure that we're gonna put our eggs in this basket
Mhm.
and really try to.
Movies
Make
make
it
more
sound
sense. It's dollars in, dollars out.
Yeah.
Streaming is so hard. It's
You
not.
can't-
It's dollars in, and we
Yeah.
get 50
We
a
got some
million more
subscribers.
people at
Yeah.
$15. Like, is that gonna do it? It's just not.
No, yeah, it's
100 million.
it
people?
leads
I don't
into
know.
a bigger conversation we'll have in a little bit of just, and we've talked about before, but I do think, it's not just me saying this because I've watched some videos and some video essays of people who have worked in like these industries and have worked
Yeah.
for some streaming services who really have flat out said that they think that the streaming model is a failed model
Mhm.
for growth. Like you said, studios don't even know how to necessarily quantify how much they should put into a budget of like
Yeah.
the Acolyte because you're
Yeah.
not sure what you're getting out of it. Because it's very easy to go, okay, The Last Jedi cost this much to make.
Made
Here's
this
how
much
much we
money.
paid all of the actors. Here's how much we put in our marketing, and then here are the ticket sales. Boom. The movie was a hit or the movie was a flop. We know it's very, very clear as
I
far
think
as
we're going to see a
business-wise.
big wave back
The
towards
shows are tough because
I think so.
traditional model you would have all the ad stuff that we talked about before. It used to be okay. Pepsi wants to sponsor. You've got this. You pay for the ad.
Yeah.
And then there are very specific things that are able to. Okay, this amount of time, this many time slots. It was just very. Again, it was
You
there were
could
there were
quantify
definitive answers.
the
Yeah, you
numbers.
could quantify everything. Where now it's this gray area of most of these streaming shows can't even say they have different metrics of as far as what even counts as a view. Because I know like some of the like having watched a show,
That's right.
some of them will say if they watched more than 5 minutes of an episode of a show, that means they watched it.
Yeah.
It's almost
Someone
like
else
they
would be
need
like,
to do
if
an
they just
annual
didn't-
budget and be
Yeah.
like, here's what we've put in this year. Here's what we've made this year,
Yeah.
regardless of the project that
Right.
we've done. It's
How many
almost
sub-
like how we need a,
How many
we need a-
subscribers does Disney Plus have? Do you know?
Not sure.
I don't know.
Not sure.
They
But
pay so much in residuals and everything. It's they're still not ahead.
then and
Yeah,
you think of what they have
Yeah.
to pay to keep a lot of stuff just even on there, which
Right.
is why they got rid of stuff like Willow and things like they were like, we're not making even any money on this.
Yep.
So we actually saved money by taking it off. so we
Indiana
don't have to
Jones
keep
stuff
it.
is gone too.
Did you hear? Did you hear
Well,
about
not
the
all of
Indiana
it, but-
Jones stuff? That
No.
it's because of their deal with Paramount.
Oh yeah, because Paramount. Yeah.
Because Paramount owns
Mhm.
Oh,
the
It's over there.
pre-Disney Indiana Jones is still Paramount owned, and so
Yep.
they had a licensing agreement. I was just watching a video about this the other
Do
day.
it
They had
for
a
a while
licensing
and then-
agreement, and that agreement just ended like 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Probably
wow.
up to the launch
So
of the
all
movie
of the
and
previous Indiana Jones movies were taken
go back.
off. And then I think Dial of Destiny maybe is still up there.
Yeah.
But then everything else has been taken off and is back on
Hmm.
Paramount.
Paramount.
Wow.
Paramount Plus or something.
I
yeah.
mean, there's just so many. I can't even keep up with all the streaming
Mhm.
services.
So
It's
as
cable.
we're
I
It's
know.
different
I know there
channels.
I know. I know.
I saw it. Yeah, people have talked about like, what if we bundled it all together? There's all these different streaming things. We bundle it together and we call it cable. Simple. It's
And we'll throw in about
Everything in one place.
100 more things that you never
exactly,
watch.
'cause you never watch, but you have it.
Mhm. And charge you $100 a month.
So as far as a
What?
few things we want to talk about, so with Ewan McGregor, we've hit on that.
Not a kid.
Something that happened about a month or two ago now, but we haven't had a ton of casts in between because we've had some
Yeah, give us
just
the
different weeks and
updates.
stuff. But one of the things that was going around probably about a month ago now, maybe a little bit longer, but we didn't fully address it, I don't think, on the show, is the potential. There was a report going around, or a number of reports going around, that the Daisy Ridley New Jedi Order
Mm.
film, and again, I had to reread exactly its wording
Yeah,
because
they were.
there were a lot of
I read a
headlines
little
that were
bit of
going
that.
around that I was like, oh, that's not what that says.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want to just see take everything you see passed around on the internet without looking around like, okay, what's the actual thing say? But some of the headlines about the Daisy Ridley movie was that is reportedly potentially, so this was said, was potentially on hold, and reports are that the new Jedi Order movie starring Daisy Ridley was reportedly needs more work and is now on hold. It is not expected to start filming until 2025. And then when I read that at first, I thought, okay, on hold, and people are like, oh, it's never happening. And again, who knows? Because we'll talk about this. They have not had a great track record with some of their announced projects that don't end up happening. But then what's funny, when I was reading this, I'm sitting there going like, oh, it's not going to start until 2025. And I like looked at the calendar. I was like, oh, it's like a couple months from now. But
Yeah.
but again, that's not saying that it's shooting in January 2025.
That's right.
confirmed either.
Mhm.
Yeah. End of the year.
We just know though the big thing there was if this is supposed to make a 2026 release date,
Mhm.
being delayed into any part of 2025
Not
to
gonna
start
happen.
production sounds like that's not going to happen on that,
yeah.
at least at that date.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah, and I saw Daisy Ridley even came out because that stuff was going around. And
Daisy
her,
Ridley came out.
Her quotes. Her quotes were like,
and because of that,
just
because of that. A big
but her quotes
response.
were along the lines of like, I don't remember them exactly, but it was basically like I agreed to this project because I know that what they're talking about, what they had in mind. I
Yeah.
believe it's a good project. So
Mhm.
she's talking like, and I don't know, it almost came across as like, yeah, I agreed to this because it's going to be something good that I think they've got a good thing lined up. But obviously she's getting asked probably like, is this still happening?
Mhm.
So it's tough with these announcements because when they're officially announced, then it puts everybody at question of what's
That's
going
right.
on whenever this stuff comes up. So
Yeah.
like for her now, and it doesn't matter if she's interviewing for a different project. She's
Mhm.
gonna get asked about
Yeah.
about this stuff with Star Wars. Is it happening? Is it not
All
happening?
the time.
Yeah. So a couple things that were in the actual, because I read like the little article that was talking about this write up, and again, we want to always say all this stuff that's not been officially reported by Disney or officially reported by Lucasfilm, you're always like, okay, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. However, I don't think Disney and Lucasfilm they don't make
Like negative
official
announcement.
cancellation things until well after that.
For
They're
things
not
that
gonna-
aren't
Yeah.
that
They're
aren't
not going to
going,
try
yeah.
They're not going to try to undercut their own business and say,
Right.
just so you know, we're having problems with the script. This is an official
If
Disney
they did, it would
release.
happen every day.
We would, yeah, no,
There's
that's
too
Yeah,
many
yeah.
things like
So
that idea we had. We're not doing that.
No,
one.
yeah,
we are doing this
50
one.
projects were laid on our desk
we're still
today.
waiting on.
All of them were thrown in the trash.
We're still waiting.
Didn't
on
even read 90% of them.
I mean, Disney has
Um,
never even had an announcement on the Ryan Johnson trilogy. So
Right.
so there are they don't. That's not their place. It's
Mhm.
Hollywood Reporter comes out and Variety
Yeah,
comes out
yeah,
and says, by the
yeah.
way, it's official that that project's been killed or that
Yeah,
that has
yeah.
happened.
Yeah, right.
Disney announces
Yeah.
their projects that are happening, and then they put it out there if something's not going to happen. So, but what this article had said was that Stephen Knight, who is the lead writer that was brought in to do this script, who was the head of, I don't know if he was showrunner or just head writer, creator of the show Peaky Blinders, which I've watched.
Yeah.
I've watched.
Yeah.
That gave me.
They're
got me
going to make a
excited.
movie
Yeah,
of that too. I
They
heard.
are.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Which,
Stephen
yeah,
Knight,
he's-
Peaky
Killian's
Blinders
gonna
head writer,
kill.
has
Ian. He's going to kill Ian.
He's gonna kill him. Kill him.
Kill
everybody else.
The report is that Stephen Knight has supposedly submitted 4+ scripts to Lucasfilm. That has received
Imagine
notes
writing
back and forth. He's written 4 completed scripts that they have then made notes, sent back. Another script, send notes, and it's been a back and forth. It says,
He
but
is
has been
fed up.
combated with notes every time to the point where he is now. This is again the report was that he is now potentially maybe so frustrated that he's considering leaving the project altogether.
Yeah.
And this led into a bigger discussion of just 2 parts. One, quick little rundown of just
Kathy
a few of the
only wants
things,
Ryan
a few of the
Johnson.
things that they've announced, official announcements that haven't happened.
Yeah.
Because we know they've had a track record with that. So this isn't to get too negative. This is to lead into just kind of like where do we think things stand with the movies and some stuff. So 2 parts. Gonna run down just a few things that have been announced that haven't come to fruition, which again happens with all studios. But I think everyone would admit that Lucasfilm's had a tough stretch here with some of these projects. And then the second is just, so there's a positive and a negative to working in a massive thing like Star Wars. What I'm getting at is it becoming too difficult that some of these writers and some of these big directors want to come in? They grew up as Star Wars fans. They want to come
Right.
in. Then they get in the actual room and they even have an agreement and stuff gets out there of, okay, Kathy Kennedy says, we're doing this with Patty Jenkins. Awesome. She did Wonder Woman. Great. Cool. We get down to the script. Oh, we actually don't like that script. And like they get into it and then they can't figure it out. So is it becoming? Yeah. I'm a little bit concerned that maybe it's becoming a thing that like I don't know how many big time directors want to jump in the Star Wars thing because.
Yeah.
But I also get it from Star Wars
That's-
perspective is you can't just come in and Colin Trevorrow do whatever you want if you think it goes against the actual tenets of Star Wars.
Right.
But is there
Yeah.
some middle ground that maybe allows some of them to have a little bit more creative control, where
Yeah.
where you can feel like,
It's-
if Denis Villeneuve, who did Dune and so many other great movies, says I want to do a Star Wars movie, and as long as it's not breaking like the tenets of the Force or Jedi, that type of thing,
Let him do what
Yep.
he wants.
should it be like, and Denis doing a Denis Villeneuve Star Wars movie? It should feel like his movie, or should it feel like all Star Wars movies feel kind of similar, and you just have to fit into,
This
you have
box,
to kind of thread the needle here. I don't know. Any thoughts on just kind of, and we'll get to some of the projects, but I know I'm rambling a little bit, but
I
it makes
think-
sense as far as kind of, it feels like a tough target to hit, kind of.
It does, and I think part of what makes it tough is probably the project itself and the time period within Star Wars that they're looking at. If the project coming in is an Obi-Wan Kenobi show, it's going to have a lot more. Threading the needle is going to be a lot tighter in terms of fitting what works and what doesn't. They're probably going to have a lot more of like,
Dealing with legacy characters.
here's the
that's,
timeline. You have to fit into this, but also try and make it your own. But here's the story. Here's what you can and can't do.
Right.
As opposed to here's how the Force works. make a movie about the Dawn of the Jedi. It's like I feel like that allows more liberty. That still is so. It depends.
Which I still hope that Mangold movie happens.
I know.
I hope
I think
so.
it depends what the project is. I will say, for the sake of Star Wars and Lucasfilm and the state of where Star Wars is at right now, I would lean towards give them more freedom as long as they don't break canon of what the Force is. As long as you don't break the actual foundation of like the Force and how it works and that sort of thing, then give them more freedom, go to a different time period, and get a project out there with someone that can actually just kind of make their own movie. Like if he were to go make a film that's a Dune-like film, but it's a Dawn of the Jedi, or even an Old Republic time period where the rule of two is not a thing yet, or like there's liberty within that because some of what we view as has to be done in Star Wars hasn't been established in the Star Wars world yet.
Right.
Like this idea of the Sith and stuff maybe wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah, give him a time
Could
period
be.
that doesn't have
It doesn't have a lot of constraints on it, but the Force itself is almost like it's like gravity. It's like you can't you can't change gravity. So it's like there are some nuances within it that you're like, okay, this is how it works. You can't change this no matter what project you're
Right.
doing. But it's in a space where there's a lot of freedom within this time period.
Yeah.
I think that is now that's not always going to be a case. They're gonna want to continue projects with legacy characters that we know because that's where a big audience is drawn. But I think there's opportunity for projects like that for potential directors and stuff to come in and be like, I want to do a Star Wars movie and have the liberty to make it my own.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I see the most liberty being had.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think that would be a good. I would love to see that movie. Where you can't tell where in the galaxy it is.
Yeah.
You can't tell when in the galaxy it is.
Yeah.
But it is Star Wars. It has those elements. We could probably list. You know a lot more about the news and the history. We could probably list 10 names, directors or writers who have stepped in and stepped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the list.
So
right
there's
here.
a ton.
Yeah.
There's a ton of people. But the reality is that's true of almost any.
That happens a lot.
Happens all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But Star Wars, I think, and now also they don't know what people want.
Yeah.
They don't know what
yeah.
they should make.
Yeah.
So you have people at the top who are concerned about the budget and the finances of it, dealing with people in the middle. I would imagine that Kathy is straddling the line a little bit. Filoni is more on the creative end side of it, leaning toward the creative
Like
side.
giving the
Kathy
people
has
what
to
they want.
satisfy investors and the money, but also the creative side of
Yeah.
it, and has been doing this a long time. So the reality is, unless
And you
you're
got Iger over the whole thing.
a name who has so much clout that they will look at you and go, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's
Filoni. I
Three
mean, literally,
people-
Filoni. Like they basically say,
well, even
like
Or you mean even bigger, like industry wise?
even that
Yeah.
because Filoni hasn't delivered
really
no,
Favreau.
I just mean in terms of just the
crushing
knowledge
blow.
of what
That's right.
is allowed and
Favreau
what's
could
not
be the-
allowed.
James Cameron.
Yeah.
James
Yeah.
Cameron can go, nope, this is the script.
Yeah.
This is why we need to do it, and this is
Yes.
how we need to do it. And they
Yeah.
will go, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Christopher
Yeah.
Nolan
Stephen
said he
Knight
wants
can't
to
do that.
if
Yeah,
Christopher Nolan said he
exactly.
wants to
Christopher
do
Nolan.
a Star Wars movie.
That's right.
You like Christopher Nolan do
They
a
would
Star
say,
Wars movie.
they
Yeah.
might say no
Yeah.
from a creative standpoint, but they would never doubt.
No.
They would
The-
never say, go back and rewrite. They might have ideas, but so
Yeah.
Spielberg would be
for
able
sure.
to come in. That Spielberg is big enough to fail in Star. He's big enough to
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
just because of his clout, his connection with Kathy Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
But everybody else, it's got to
Yeah.
be a ping pong game.
It is.
Oh,
Here's
yeah.
my idea. No, they can't. You do this. Here's my idea. No,
Yeah.
no, and eventually you just feel like nothing I put out there. And you also have an idea for a reason. These aren't just thoughts. These are things that you feel passionate about.
Yes.
Yeah.
You put your idea out there and they say no.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's the most important thing to me.
yeah.
And then you come back with another one.
And then they start
And
picking apart different notes, and
And
you're
I
like,
understand why they're doing it. I totally
Yes,
get
that's
it.
the thing is I
Yeah.
understand.
You can't put $200 million into somebody's idea just because
just because
he
who they are.
likes
Yes.
it. You got to have something to show that it's
Exactly.
going to work.
And that it's
It's
interesting because so much of growing up, and I can imagine a lot of these directors growing, and they all talk about, I grew up with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, that's what got me into directing. That's what got me into film.
the creative
A lot
side,
of times,
for sure.
The creative side of things was Star Wars. So I
That's
can
right.
imagine them being like, I've got this idea or this thing I've always wanted to tell. Like, let's just give an example of like Favreau.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had this idea of I just love boba, and I always like playing with action figures.
Yeah.
I created this boba thing. He didn't come in and create some crazy new enlightenment on Star Wars. He took boba and made the exact same character into Mando, essentially, and then tweaked it a little bit.
That's right.
So I can imagine there's probably some of these creatives that are coming in, and they're like, "That's not you have this idea, and it's great, and it's something you grew up with, but it's almost so similar to what we
Mhm.
already
Mhm.
have. It's like we already have a legacy character that's this because
Yeah.
you're making your own story all this time about the stories and influenced by the stories that you love.
Right.
That it's probably an interesting balance of something that's new and fresh. That's not just like, oh, here's a new character or something telling the same story.
So
Mhm.
here's
Like a new
I
chosen
agree.
one, or
Yeah.
like how do you go from this? It's hard to go from this saga of Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker, but even Anakin being, a huge focal point of the chosen one, the big twist, the downfall, the I'm your father, to how do we top that saga
Mm-hmm.
with a new character or a new time period that carries a similar weight with a coming up with a whole new like chosen one like weight to the story.
Mhm.
It's got to be extremely challenging to try and come up with something that's fresh but not too far off.
This is exactly
Yeah.
right.
It's like
So I have a couple thoughts on this too, because I think I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think it's a tough thing. I understand. If I'm Disney, if I'm Lucasfilm, or even just as a fan, I want them to have high standards for Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want just anything to be put out there. So
Right.
that's why I do kind of it's unfortunate, and I do get frustrated as a fan. And we've talked about before. Like I am at the point where with some of these announcements, we've made jokes
you
before,
can't
but like,
trust them.
well, I don't trust. I don't trust
That's the
announced
problem.
release dates.
I trust their intent, but
Yeah, and-
it doesn't seem like it.
And there are some other things involved with that as well. I mean, obviously, the writers' strike, the writers' actors' strike from last year delayed a lot of stuff. COVID a few years before that delayed a lot of stuff. There are things that still, like, even though it's a couple years removed from some of those things, there are some studios who are stumbling a little bit more. Marvel has stumbled a little bit more than they have.
Oh yeah,
Right.
And so it's not that this is uncommon. I do think what's unfortunate is Star Wars has not been putting out movies. So it's not like they've been putting out a bunch of movies, and then so with 20 Marvel movies, you're gonna get a couple that stumble right now.
Yeah.
It's like we've been in a slow patch of they've taken their time with the Star Wars movies and taken a little bit of a break. So then when you're like they're taking their time to get it right, and then something that has been announced a year, 2 years ago, you're then like, oh, you guys still haven't even agreed on idea for like the script and like those types of things. Then you get frustrated because you're like, are we prematurely announcing some stuff? Because I do think there's a case of that. But a couple things I wanted to hit on before we get into that. The actual rundown that I could find, the official rundown of stuff that had been announced. Obviously, the Rian Johnson trilogy was announced right after. It was announced like the weekend of The Last Jedi. It was announced.
So
Kathy brought him on stage, said we loved working. We've never had a better collaboration working with a creator before than we did with Rian Johnson, which I do still to this day think Kathy Kennedy loved
still
working
feels
with
that
Rian
way.
Johnson.
Yeah.
And Ryan loved working with Kathy, and he made them a lot of money, and it was
Yeah.
it is what it is. But obviously,
The
that Rian
aftermath.
Johnson trilogy, Benioff and Weiss, the creators from Game of Thrones, that had been announced not by Lucasfilm, but it was confirmed, and I've seen actually interviews
Yeah.
with them where they've talked about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
They were going to do essentially what the Dawn
Old
of the
Republic.
Jedi,
Yeah.
Origins of the Jedi
Origins
type
of the
of a
Jedi.
movie.
Yeah.
And they said it's kind of ironic that now Star Wars announced they're going to do they're going to do that, but they're doing it with Mangold. They're like, we had that idea 4 years ago, and they were like, and they had announced that we were going to do it, and then when we got into the nitty gritty and started going through like script ideas and stuff, they were like, we came to creative differences to the point where they're like, never mind, we're walking
season
away.
8 of Game of Thrones happened.
Game of Thrones came out, yeah.
People didn't like it.
Colin Trevorrow. So not all these are bad things, like bad decisions. The Colin Trevorrow one. Nothing against Colin Trevorrow, but that script has been leaked. And we've seen that there are fundamental problems.
And you get a name somewhat big enough, and they say, "I'm not changing it."
Yes,
you get that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then you got Lord and Miller, who are the guys who have done a bunch of stuff. Who did Spider-Verse. They won Academy Awards for Spider-Verse. Theirs is a whole different thing.
They were literally started.
Well, they had started and were filming. They were weeks into filming Solo.
That's
and now
crazy.
I have heard some crazy stories about that. Now, if you want to Google Lord and Miller Solo and type in some keywords like Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber, because I heard that the movie was so comedic and it was so slapsticky that actors were like, "What the heck is going on?" That they said it was so bizarre.
How did that get okayed in the first place?
I don't know, and I've seen a lot of Lord and Miller stuff. I've seen a lot of Lord and Miller stuff because Lord and Miller, and they did Last Man on Earth. Like they've done hilarious comedy stuff.
Yeah.
And
then they come out with Spider-Verse.
And then it's just it's so funny to like
one
go
of the greatest trilogies. Hopefully soon with the third one coming out.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
So it's so funny to think of like that. I would love just give me some leaked footage of what they were having Alden Ehrenreich do because. Poor Alden had just been cast as you're replacing Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
You have all this on you, and also you're now a yes and go improv.
Here,
like,
put this clown nose on.
And he's like,
can you sing this song?
Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Like I don't know what was going on. Michigan J Frog over there doing all this stuff. So I have no idea. I like Lord Miller, but that sounds hilarious. And then also. Luckily, they got Ron Howard to come in there, and I would argue, and I think all three of us really like Solo a lot. I think Ron Howard, but they had to do the exact opposite, which is bring in someone who is like the staple of stability,
who will trust.
Ron Howard is not going to ruin this movie for us. He's going to make it the most.
They went from like the comedic side to let's bring back Maul, the most like serious and depressed character.
So So that's where. So you had Lord and Miller.
Said that.
Obviously, they stepped away. Patty Jenkins, obviously, after Wonder Woman 2, then they had
literally made a trailer of her getting in an
X-Wing. How this is the most important story. My dad was a fighter pilot. I've wanted to do this, and then
I still hope that gets made.
They were saying that was going to be the first one.
Yeah, that would have been out by now.
Yeah, that was going to be the first one, and then
that would have been out by now.
Obviously, not happening. This one really hurts for me.
These are all under previous Bob, by the way.
Yes.
Previous
Bob. True. Damon Lindelof leaving this movie. This one crushed me as much as anything because I'm a big Lindelof fan as a Lost guy.
Yeah.
And I was so excited that he was and he had a writer's room, and they were heading this Rey movie. And again, this Rey movie could still come out in a couple years and could be amazing. But I was bummed out, like, oh man, this is someone I'm super excited about from a creative aspect. And he has even said, like, they had these meetings, they had these writers' rooms, they were even at Celebration, like during that weekend, they were having these like writers' conventions with him and other people. And then months went on, and they butted heads.
Yeah.
And then I think they butted heads with executives, and then they created differences, and then they asked him to change stuff, and then eventually, all right, I can't do it anymore, I'm walking. And so we had that. Taika, again, there's a number of reasons. Some of these are not bad decisions, but like Taika Waititi, they have a lot of these guys who had a hit.
They announce
then they announce Taika, and then they have a follow-up that's disappointing, and then they go, "Ooh, Patty Jenkins, Wonder Woman 84.
Benioff and Weiss
wasn't good.
Last season, not as good. Taika,
not as good.
Love and Thunder, not as good.
Not as good. And then they announce like the hot director. But then they can't get the project out fast enough because the hot director then follows up with something that's not so hot.
It goes blah.
And then they go, never mind. And then the last couple here, they did have and again, it turned out okay. But they
Except Ryan
had-
Johnson. He hasn't missed.
hasn't missed. They had Tony Gilroy.
Knives Out
They
just crushing
had
it.
I know.
Tony Gilroy, who did Andor. He came in to finish Rogue One because they parted ways with Gareth Edwards. Basically, they had Gareth Edwards who
Yeah.
directed Rogue One. They reshot a lot of the whole third act of that movie. They reshot, which is why if you watch the trailer, there's a lot of things that aren't even in the beach. There's a beach. Vader and the stormtroopers walking through the water on the sands and stuff. That's not even in the movie. Jin on the balcony and the
I don't even
TIE
remember
fighter
that
coming
in
up
the
face to
trailer.
face with
Yeah.
her. That's not in the movie.
Right.
Because they cut all that stuff out when they switched directors. They had to completely change the end of the movie. That, and then the one that was announced by Hollywood Reporter, the Kevin Feige movie that, again, Lucasfilm never had him come out on stage, but it was reported that Kevin Feige was going to be a producer, or the executive producer, essentially a head creative behind a Star Wars movie. Not to direct it, but to be a head creative, and then that just kind of went away.
And then all of Marvel took a hit, and he's like, I should probably get back
maybe
to
I'm
focusing
maybe
on
do
back on
less.
next
And then the
one.
last thing was, and again, a number of these have different reasons. And then there was Josh Trank, who was the director who was announced the same time when they were working on they were going to initially announce, I think it was before Solo came out. They had a Star Wars Celebration or San Diego Comic-Con, and they were having him come out to announce a Boba Fett movie. And Solo ends up not making money. And I heard this, the Force Center said this because they said they were at the thing. They literally knew people who knew him that said he will be there tomorrow, and they're going to have him on stage. And the next day on stage, it was passed around. They said, "Oh, he's sick. He can't make it." And what ended up happening is the movie didn't make money, and they canceled the project immediately. This dude was literally coming to announce a Boba Fett movie.
That shows you how
And-
early though they're making these announcements.
Well, so they're
That
doing
they're
all this
not
stuff.
they're not the
This is
feet
around
are
the
not
time-
off the
and this
ground
is-
at all.
and
It's
this is
just
what
like
happened-
an idea.
This
we
is why
wanna do
Obi-Wan
it,
got delayed
and
too.
then
Did
You know-
because Obi-Wan
Scrap.
movie was going to be announced that same weekend. It was Obi-Wan and it was Boba
Yeah.
Fett. They were both going to be announced, and they pull both of them. And then a few years later, they
Man.
do an Obi-Wan show.
That's right.
But that's where. So again, there's
Yeah.
10 plus different things there of they had announced it or at least had intentionally put it out there. This isn't. We're not even talking about fan theories of oh, we would love to have Christopher Nolan do a Star
No, it's
Wars
actually
movie.
going.
These are actually going.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then it doesn't come to fruition for a number of reasons.
It's a
So
lot.
it's a rough track.
You know
record,
what?
but-
The worst. They would have pulled the plug on it before any of these other things.
Star Wars.
The original Star Wars.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh
if
yeah.
they had executives
only Laddie Alan
going
Jr.
exactly.
into George Lucas's thing, the crew didn't even know what they were making. They thought
The
it was
crew-
stupid.
Empire.
No.
Yeah, they talked about how.
So if they had
were they thought it was
executives
so
looking
dumb.
at this, they would have pulled the plug on the first one.
The
It
crew
would
is
never
about to
have gotten
mutiny.
past.
No.
No, you know this from the documentary. The crew was literally about to mutiny against them.
Yeah.
They're like, we're being overworked. We're in the
Yeah.
desert,
And this thing
this
is
is so stupid.
Dumb. We don't even know what this
this?
is.
We don't even know what's going on.
Do you think?
And George is faster, more intense.
Is it
Yeah.
possible? Is it possible somewhere in the Lucasfilm there's this because it happens with creatives. The only good idea is mine. Is that possible? That there's someone
they're waiting
in
for
there
someone else to come up with
that
it to
says
okay it.
that they want you to be creative and think of stuff, but because I get in this mode, I do it all the time.
Mhm.
I have I want some help. Give me some ideas. None of those ideas are mine.
Yeah,
I want you to come up with my idea that's
Yes.
better than my idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
But if you don't, I'm going to tell you that. But really, what it ends up being is none of your ideas are mine. So you're not thinking right. And I wonder if there's a little bit of that at play.
yeah.
Yeah.
That none of these ideas are.
What I have in mind.
You're not getting
That's-
into what
yeah.
I want,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
And I think you hit on it earlier. is
Maybe,
I
but there's
don't-
also
Yeah.
the executives get in the way.
yeah,
Like that's not going to make money. That's terrible.
yeah.
Look, that failed. We're not going to go this. They're going to botch this thing up. Need to
And-
get somebody else.
And you get
Every
po-
Star Wars project
you
has
get-
been botched, and it's one of the biggest franchises of all
well,
time.
you get
Yeah,
positive.
the worst one ever
Yeah,
was the first one.
the first
Yeah.
one.
It's
as
the
far
worst
as the creative,
production
yeah.
ever.
And
Probably.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
massive.
And what's interesting is because you're hitting on something
True.
that's important here too, is that there are times in which like executive notes and stuff. Because sometimes, I mean, there's been also video essays about how the editing of Star Wars made the first movie.
And
like,
George edited himself.
Yeah, so like
He's
editing.
like, okay, let me
like
edit this.
you had to
Right.
having it all filmed, having it all acted, having a script still made no sense.
It's not a movie yet.
And then he edited it, and it's edited, and then it
You
works.
direct the movie twice, when
Yeah.
you film it and when you edit it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
there are times when
I like that.
studios
It's
will
true.
give good
Yeah.
notes. There's times when studios give notes, and it actually makes the film better. And then there's also times when executives step in and
it takes away from
it
the
ruins something, or it takes away something, or they're missing something, or just they make a financial business decision that really hurts a project. I mean, Bob Iger in his book and has said in interviews, he admits that Solo was on him. That not the production behind the scenes stuff, but that the release date was something he pushed that Kathy didn't want. It was tough, especially having a director switch. Them moving to May, even though Star Wars had traditionally been in May, but following The Last Jedi in December, and then going the following May, we're going to just a few weeks, around a few weeks close to the Endgame release. We're gonna have another Star Wars movie when we haven't even been doing one movie a year.
Right.
It just started trying to do like 1 year. We're gonna do two,
and then
within 5.5 months.
Yeah.
And he talks about how that was a big mistake and it cost him a ton of money, and it was him trying to hit a quarterly. They were trying to hit a quarterly.
Quota. Yeah.
A quota. They were trying to hit
if we
something
put
for the
this
stock
in there, we'll
people.
make it.
And so there's times when they step in, but it is interesting what the balance is, because again, like you said, I think we want the creators to want to be in Star Wars. We want them to have some sort of creative identity that makes movie
it fresh
feels
in their
like
own.
a Star Wars movie, but also I would want it to feel like, and I would argue Rian Johnson's feels like a Ryan Johnson Star Wars movie. JJ feels like a JJ Star Wars movie. They don't feel the same, and that's okay, because I don't think Return of the Jedi and Empire feel the same. They feel very different.
Yeah.
I saw some people pointing out the other day of like, if in today's world we had just followed up Empire and it's this massive hit, and then Return of the Jedi comes out, and imagine the firestorm on Twitter when you find out that Lando was a character created specifically to basically just be another Han Solo, because they were worried that they were going to lose Harrison Ford. And so they froze him in carbonite just because he hadn't agreed to do the third film yet, and the whole rest of the cast had. He said he was going to leave. And so they're like, well, we'll just freeze him and decide what to do. And then within the first act of the film, they go, actually, he's unfrozen. He's fine. You would be like, well, what was that all about? And then he's fine, but also
Twitter would roast, roast
he's
Ewoks
unfrozen.
today.
Oh, yeah. He's
it'd be
unfrozen, but now he also acts all googly-eyed over Princess Leia, which he's never acted like that in any of the other movies.
Yeah.
He's always been too cool for Princess Leia. But in the third one, it's, I love you. Like, he's just like, it's like a different character.
Yeah.
Even though I love Return of the Jedi.
It's great.
Han Solo is a very different character.
That's right.
In that film. There's like the jokes are different. There's a number of things. So
feels different. Yeah.
It's not uncommon that different directors have different visions for it and different feels. But one thing I wanted to tie this back into a little bit positive here. I would argue they're not. It doesn't sound like anytime soon they're going to get a Christopher Nolan Star Wars movie or a Spielberg Star Wars movie. That would be amazing. Or Denis Villeneuve, like one of these guys that kind of like right now are the top.
Who basically don't fail.
Scorsese Star Wars movie is even impossible because it just be everyone's just dead.
Right.
Everyone's just, it's like, oh, remember when Luke snaps a pull cue and stabs someone in the throat and then drives away in a taxi? You're like, well, no, that's Taxi, or that's these are you can't do that. There's some creators. Tarantino might have a hard time, and
that's his last film.
Right?
Tarantino's his last one is now going to be Star Wars.
It's just a very bloody third act.
Star Wars.
But
and I will smite thee with vengeance. Right.
But I would argue that as far as the people who are out there, who also have a great relationship with Disney and has made them a lot of money, it seems like a very good business decision that Favreau is the one doing the first Star Wars movie. As much as we were like, And I've had hesitations and like reservations of like I don't want this to feel like another episode of Mando, even though I love Mando.
Yeah.
Right.
I want this to feel like a Star Wars movie. We also have to remember that Favreau has way more experience with movies than he does with television.
Yeah.
Way more.
And massive
If
movies.
Yeah. He'll
Lion King made
I'm excited for
Huge.
it. I
Well,
can't
Iron
wait.
Man.
It was insane.
Yeah.
Iron Man was insane.
just
He knows
launched the whole
how
thing.
to do things.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
he's done these big budget Jungle Book. He's done and these are all Disney for Disney.
Elf.
He's made them. Elf. There you go.
True.
Make an Elf
It's true.
Star Wars movie. He's made huge commercial success
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
movies.
Right.
And also like whatever people think of current Star Wars, Mando's undoubtedly been a major
He's been driving
success.
this.
Oh, yeah.
Mando is a hit. It is the it is the
Grogu is
thing
one of
in
the
Star Wars
greatest
right now.
creative decisions they've ever made.
And Mando, like both of them. Think of like the merchant. We talk about this.
He's
The
got a lot of
merchant.
credit.
Grogu alone is carrying their
He's got
yeah.
a lot of credit. If
financial.
if Mandalorian and Grogu smashes,
If it smashes,
it's
that'll
Favreau
be
to the future. Favreau's
Yeah.
going to be
yes.
the next movie.
Yes.
totally.
And that'll be
Um,
way out there, but
It could be. I mean,
He's
it
gonna-
seriously could be a trilogy of movies.
Yeah.
If he smashes this out of the park and this
Yeah.
thing makes like $1 billion or something, it's
Or
Or just
even just a different
critically-
character within it.
Okay.
He'll
I
go.
think
He'll go
he'll-
make
I think
another.
it'd be-
I think he might make a different one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll keep
He
going
might
on
do the same
Mando.
because I,
But
'cause
he'll
I
make a
actually don't
different
think
movie.
Pedro Pascal has many more
No.
Mando appearances
No.
in him. Just
No.
based
I
on
want to
that.
get
think
to
he has
some of
a
this
lot
stuff too because
going
we
on.
got some things in the chat.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, says Darth in chat says instead of trying to do a second season of Kenobi, they should do a Clone Wars live action series with Ewan, Hayden, and young Ahsoka.
Listen, that would be awesome.
I don't want that, but this is their best option for them. I
Nothing
think
makes me happier than
that
seeing
would be
Hayden
amazing.
when Hayden. And, first of all, I think it's harder for Ewan.
Mhm.
Practically, it's going to be difficult to do a whole live action
Yeah.
de-aging
That'd be
for
tough.
a whole series.
Yeah.
It's good
I was gonna
at
say,
moments,
with
but that's gonna
AI
be tough
now,
to do.
5 years, de-aging is going to be a
That's the thing is.
button click.
That's
yeah,
well, yeah,
who
that's
knows
true.
if
I'll
you
bet you.
Well, yeah.
already
So-
the Ahsoka de-aging for Hayden
Yeah.
was way better
Mhm.
Than
than
Kenobi.
than the Kenobi.
Oh
one.
yeah.
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 And again, they did things to help it. They did the lighting stuff. They did, but like, I can't watch the Kenobi. I love the Kenobi scene
Mhm.
when it's Obi-Wan in,
Training.
but it looks like two 40-years fighting. to
Oh,
me.
yeah.
like it like it
Yeah,
actually
Hairline's
looks,
not even
like
the
it actually
same.
kind of looks a little bit like an SNL skit of like they got Hayden to put on the braid
Yeah.
and like, but it's clearly him like cosplaying almost as himself.
That's right.
Where I get lost in the
That's
Ahsoka
something
scene.
George would go
They're
back
The
and
gonna
edit
Ahsoka
do
that.
scene, I almost like
No, they're going to be able to.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be able to click a button and de-age and thin them out and make
Yeah.
them look the way they want.
Oh yeah.
If the actor's okay with it,
Yeah, that's
and
another
they-
thing.
and
they
is-
agree-
is that,
which
yeah,
you'll have to if you sign on to a project in the future, you're going to have
Yeah,
to be
you're gonna
okay
have
with
to.
with
the
the
aging
alternate
and
stuff
thinning and all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm
I
sure.
thought I kind of want a de-aged Robert De Niro to come in and beat people up again, Uncle, and Irish.
have you seen that? I think that's
No,
awful.
I honestly never watched
I think
it.
it's
the
horrible.
Irishman.
I, think
I,
it's
I remember you
terrible.
saying that, so I never went and watched it.
I watched that,
Yes,
and if
that's
you're an
it.
Irishman fan, I'm happy that you enjoyed it. But the scene where he's beating up the store worker, it just looks like
He said,
an 80-year-old
when
man
you're
pulling
I have
his,
a hard time buying
pulling
into
his
that.
kick, like pulling his kicks, and his left hand is like this. He's and his face looks like he's 30. Like it just doesn't work.
It's hilarious.
So, but they're getting better at it. They're getting
Yeah.
better.
the Ahsoka one to me blew me away.
Yes.
Ahsoka
That,
was
that blew
great.
me away because
For
I
sure.
really got lost in like it took me back to like I'm looking at young Hayden here,
Yeah.
especially when they did the actual Clone Wars flashback and he had the shorter hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
like not the
No, no, no.
braid, the
Yeah.
the in between.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. He's like, this is the Clone Wars. Yeah, no kidding. That whole thing when he's talking
Yeah, that
to her.
was-
I think that
I
would
need
be
to
a
go
cool
rewatch
idea.
it.
That was,
I need to go
that's
rewatch
just- That's one
Ahsoka.
of the coolest things they've done is that
Balin.
sequence there. Balin, yeah, we'll get to. They need to recast
Oh
Balin.
man.
Yeah, we'll see what they.
I saw some
we'll see what
pictures
they
of
end
people
up doing.
posting pictures of like was it Gerard Butler? Someone posted
Yeah,
a Gerard
I saw
Butler
that.
with the gray beard, and
I
he
saw that.
looks so much like Ray Stevenson that
Yeah.
people were like, "Oh man, that could be."
There are
I saw
actors that
that.
could do it.
It would be funny though if it's Gerard Butler, but he's like, He's got his Gerard Butler accent though. Oh, use the Force. Oh yeah, and he's just like, this is Tatooine. It's just like this is Sparta, but he's doing 300, but the whole time he's just like shouting and
cut. Why do you keep
cut.
saying
Why
it?
do you keep
It's a
saying
great line.
It's a great line. Oh, I think that was useful. And
Good
okay,
Lord.
Toothless. Okay.
Toothless.
Toothless. Yep.
Man. But
that's it. I
we're
mean,
optimistic. I mean,
we're
again,
optimistic. The state of Star Wars. There's a lot going on.
It's
think
a tough needle to thread. We've talked about it.
It is.
I would be nervous if I was.
Did you say
Lucasfilm
needle to
deciding.
thread?
Thread to needle.
it's a tough needle to thread.
I'm needling you, thread. You're a thread. You're a thread.
That's it.
Take that.
Tough needle to thread. Thread the needle. There you go.
Yeah, it is. Though.
It is.
How do you fit?
It is.
And then you got to please these people and the people with the money, and you can't lose money, and they don't even know what they're. They don't even know what they want.
The whole
they don't know what they're
it's
looking
so
for.
easy to Monday morning quarterback and be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we should have done this." If any of us right now were given the keys to Lucasfilm, first of all, I'd just sell it and take the money. But
I would love to see a certain podcast, YouTube channel take on that role.
yes,
I
Totally.
wouldn't, because
no,
it would
'cause it'd be a
last
disaster.
about a week.
Well,
Yeah.
and we've already heard from some YouTube channel that said the first thing they would do is remake all of the sequels with deep fake. I'm like, this is the worst idea I've ever heard. The thing the fans want most is just to try to remake the movie.
That's exactly what we want.
That's exactly what we want.
But what I was to say is what's hard is it's so easy to point out like what's not gone right or things you think should be different.
Yeah.
Great. Like we all know it hasn't been
Of
perfect.
course, you can say, "Oh, you
But
don't
like,
like
if you're
it."
asking me right now on the spot, Mike, you have 10 seconds. Tell me
What's
what
your
should
idea?
what should the next Star Wars movie be? I don't know. Like
Yeah.
that gives me nervous. Like gets me nervous just thinking about. Like
Go.
I don't know what it should be.
You have
like,
10 seconds.
Ryan Johnson trilogy. I'm back on it. I
I'm
really
back
just want
on
him.
Nailed
I know.
it.
So I don't. It's tough
Yeah, I
because
can
you're
think
like
of two
I
words.
don't know
Ryan
if it's
Johnson.
go
I think that's why these
completely
projects
different.
get okayed and then they get scrapped because someone else is giving the okay and then they come in and Kathy goes, "Who was it? Is it Ryan Johnson? No. Okay, cancel it.
Sorry.
Cancel
Oh,
it.
that
Are
is
the-
my
are the-
final note.
are
I
the
know we're
initials
wrapping.
RJ?
Cancel it.
That's my final note on that. I know we're wrapping. I do think if we were to be just
It's a
honest,
wrap.
I do think they need to not. I would say that they've
Hold off on the
announced.
announcements.
Don't announce and bring people on stage
Honest
if we
truth,
haven't had
that's what
a
they need to do.
discussion about the script yet.
I think Iger's pulling
Yeah,
that
it's
back
tough.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I
so.
think.
Yeah.
I think so. Especially
Because they're putting they put more and more pressure on themselves every time they do it.
And I understand. I've done it. I have stuff that I've come up with, like, it's going to be
you want to
great.
announce it. Yeah.
Actually, that's not really good.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
or
that.
you want to put it out there of like
You're
just
excited
so you know,
about
watch
it.
out
For
for
the
this.
investors.
This is exciting.
You're excited about it.
Too.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. It's going to be great. Like,
Yeah.
they don't like that. Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
tough.
there you
But
have it. There
I'm
you
still
have it.
hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Possible Kenobi projects in the works, or at least in the talks of what could be the
Exploration.
next thing. Ray
Yeah.
movie, current state of Star Wars. There
I
you
hope
have it.
that Ray movie still comes out because I'm.
I
Very
hope so
excited for
too. I hope so too. I'm looking
I
forward
think
to
it will.
future movies. We got Mando movies kind of present, and then we've got hopefully some pastime. in
I
the
think
works.
it's just gonna be Daisy Ridley wearing the Peaky Blinders cap. She's just sitting next to me. It's just Arthur.
Tommy
Have a
Shelby.
cockney. Got to
Arthur?
find my lightsaber.
Arthur,
Isn't it?
we're going to the pub.
Edna.
It's my lightsaber, isn't it?
I said Edna.
It's orange.
I love it. There you have
Hello.
it. If you
Hello,
made it this
Saber.
far, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe,
Smash the button.
smash
Yeah.
the notification bell. Edna.
Oh, and
Smash
Uncle,
the
real quick, you have
notification
10
bell.
seconds. Give me something negative about Wizard of Oz. It's been a while.
True. True. On the spot.
I think I talked about this, but Judy Garland was scarred for her whole life because of the abuse she took, and she was addicted to amphetamines because
I'm not laughing.
because
this is so serious.
of
Yeah.
the Wizard of Oz.
That's terrible.
That is really terrible.
It ruined her whole life.
I would
I was
say
only laughing because I was so surprised at how.
So
how
they
serious
tried to
it
kill
got.
I know.
they tried to kill Buddy Ebsen. Almost got him. The witch got burned, and Judy Garland was a drug addict her whole life because of the Wizard of Oz.
That'll do
Yeah.
it.
And
That'll
Louis
do it.
B.
That'll do
Mayer
it. If you like what you
sat
heard
up
today-
there on his big old fat lion horse, cashing the checks. Garland, get out there and do your scenes. I can't do it, Mr. Mayor. Get out there.
This movie gets worse and worse.
It really
It's
happened
great.
though. That's
I
crazy.
know. That's the thing.
It's
is-
terrible.
Like, how does he know that? And
Actually,
why
it's
does he
brutal.
know that?
Why does he know? Why? More importantly,
It's the
why?
best, worst movie ever made.
Like, how
That's how
old
I
is
call it.
Uncle? Was he there? How old is he?
And
Can't
Louis
really
said to
tell.
me, Uncle, get out there and play that wizard. And I said, I won't do it. I can't do it,
Said
Louis.
to me, Uncle. The production, they're all calling him Uncle
Uncle.
on set.
That's ridiculous.
I gotta be me.
There you have it. We'll catch you guys next time. May the force be with you.
I don't even have a
I've
quote
gotta
lined
be
up. That was the
me.
first time that I was so thrown off by the ending
I
there.
had the quote.
That I gotta be me. Oh